Chapter 1, Awakening, Boundless Potential. Translator, Lord Bluefire. All of you, this is your last awakening ceremony. If you guys still fail to awaken, you will have to spend the rest of your lives as ordinary humans. You all might find this somewhat regretful, but you guys will also be far away from the vast majority of dangers, so this might not be a bad thing. A voice entered Lu Yuan's ears, bringing him back to reality from his illusions. As a result, his body violently shook and he was shocked awake. Lu Yuan then lifted his head and glanced at the surroundings with bewilderment in his eyes. Right now, he was inside a classroom that was packed full of students, roughly around 40 of them. On the rostrum, a teacher over 50 years old was currently speaking. This place is? Lu Yuan was shocked in his heart. Am I not dead? Originally, Lu Yuan was a corporate drone that enjoyed the 996 working schedule star. Sometimes, he could even get to enjoy the 007 working schedule star. Right now, the rat race was becoming increasingly competitive. If he didn't work overtime, it was as though he would let down the entire world. And due to staying up all night too much, eating packed food daily, and having unhealthy work and life balance, he eventually got cancer. After the diagnosis was confirmed, Lu Yuan actually didn't feel too many fluctuations in his heart. Wasn't life something that was supposed to give you a surprise after you thought that you had been through and experienced enough shit? Although this surprise was very huge, he had grown somewhat numb with his life. When the diagnosis was confirmed, the cancer was already in its late stages. Hence, to reduce his family's financial burden as well as his pain, after he had deleted many of his study data with tears in his eyes, Lu Yuan ultimately chose to end his life. Although escaping was very disgraceful, Lu Yuan felt that it was quite useful. He still had a younger brother at home, so Lu Yuan didn't have to worry that no one would take care of his parents. Hence, he was quite serene when he ended his life. But probably, his parents would feel very hurt, right? Lu Yuan's consciousness trembled for an instant, and he returned to reality after that. Since that was the case, a question appeared in his mind. Who am I? Where am I? The words spoken by the teacher could be understood individually when Lu Yuan heard them. But when the words were joined together, he couldn't understand what they meant. Awakening? What awakening? At this moment, Lu Yuan's brain swelled, as much information entered his mind. The confusion in his eyes gradually faded and became much clearer than before. So, he had arrived in another world and become another young man that was also named Lu Yuan. In this world, everyone would have a chance to awaken during the 3 adolescent years, from age 16 to age 18. If they managed to awaken successfully, they would be able to activate their genetic chain and become mystical gene fighters. Moreover, they could then enter a place named Land of Origins to adventure and explore, obtaining magical treasures and powerful strength. As Lu Yuan wasn't an awakener, his understanding of the Land of Origins and Awakeners wasn't much, and he had limited information on them. In this world, he was an orphan. When he was very young, he became the sole survivor of his family. In an unfortunate mutation incident. It was only under the child support provided by the Empire that he was able to survive and grow up. When he recalled that incident that was in the depths of his brain, Lu Yuan's pupils violently narrowed and his body shuddered. This was his body's instinct when in terror. This year, Lu Yuan was already 18 years old. If he could awaken and activate his genetic chain, he would be able to head to a gene fighter academy in the future. If he couldn't awaken, he could choose to take the test and join an ordinary university. Naturally, the Empire would no longer be responsible for his living expenses and school fees. After all, the Empire's child support would only last until one became an adult at 18 years old. Strangely, the memory of this original body vanished before this lesson started. At the end of the memory, his body fell onto the table as he lost consciousness. It seemed that this original body somehow died? Because the original body's personality was too antisocial, he didn't even have a single friend in class. Even after the lesson started, no one discovered that he had died. This lasted until Lu Yuan transmigrated here. This made Lu Yuan feel somewhat astonished. From the memory of this original body, it seemed that due to the mutation incident, in addition to losing his parents, his personality became extremely antisocial. However, his body was still very healthy. So, why would he suffer a sudden death? He didn't stay up through the night at all, right? Lu Yuan pondered and felt that it might be due to the sequela from the mutation incident. After all, in this world, mutation was the most difficult thing to understand. It wouldn't be strange if anything happened. Lu Yuan didn't continue to probe. To him, being able to start all over again was something worthy of celebration. Since he was here, he should just live his new life with peace of mind. He just hoped that this new life wouldn't be too involuted, as he was really worried he might not be able to handle it. Alright, come onto the stage if your name is called. We'll start the awakening ceremony. Wang Yi, the words spoken by the teacher pulled Lu Yuan back from his thoughts. After that, he lifted his head and glanced at the rostrum as a hint of anticipation appeared in his eyes. Awakening. In the past, he had also read novels before, so he naturally thirsted for supernatural powers like these. The original body had failed the past 2 times. Hence, Lu Yuan could only hope that he would be able to succeed this time. The guy named Wang Yi went onto the stage, his face filled with nervousness as he stared at the teacher. Don't be nervous. You've tried awakening twice before, so you should know what to do, right? Place your hand on the awakening crystal and use your heart to sense your existence. Wang Yi nodded and directly placed his hand on a crystal ball on the desk. After that, he closed his eyes. The air turned heavy as the atmosphere fell silent. A short while later, the teacher glanced at his pocket watch and spoke in a dull manner. All right, it has been 1 minute. There are no reactions from the awakening crystal, so you have failed the awakening. You can go down now. When Wang Yi heard this, his eyes turned red. After that, he walked back in disappointment. The atmosphere in the class turned somewhat bleak. The teacher swept his gaze over everyone and spoke. There's only a 10% chance for ordinary people to awaken, and the probability becomes lower time after time. If one fails the first 2 times, the rate of success for their 3rd attempt will be extremely low. Don't harbor too much hope so you can avoid being disappointed if you fail. Upon hearing this, the atmosphere grew even heavier and more restrained. At this moment, Lu Yuan couldn't help but praise this guy silently. This teacher was truly the king of chilling the atmosphere. After hearing this, even his heart state grew colder by a great deal. Didn't that mean that he would fail his awakening? However, wasn't there something wrong here? According to novels, weren't people who transmigrated the main characters? If he didn't awaken, wouldn't this world lose an extremely powerful gene fighter? Also, in the future when they had to deal with mutation attacks, the pillars of humanity against the outsiders would be lacking by 1. This was a loss that humanity couldn't afford to have. Next, Li Shi. The awakening ceremony continued. Just like what the teacher had said, the 3rd attempt at awakening had an extremely low probability of success. Half an hour later, 30 students had finished the ceremony, but not a single one awakened successfully. Lu Yuan's heart also continued to sink unceasingly. Lu Yuan. When the teacher called Lu Yuan's name, for a time, everyone in the class turned and gazed over. Lu Yuan was someone they treated as non-existent. As he had no good friends who could cheer and encourage him, everyone merely watched him in silence. Also, the teacher's attitude toward him was as indifferent as how he treated the other students. He maintained a poker face continuously. Lu Yuan grumbled in his heart. Where was the special treatment accorded to the main characters? If things developed in the usual way, wouldn't there be many people showing care and concern for him or someone jumping out to mock him? But why were their reactions so calm and indifferent? Was this logical? Could it be that I'm not the main character? Lu Yuan arrived before the desk and the teacher repeated his earlier words again. Place your hand on the crystal ball and use your heart to sense your existence. Don't be too nervous. Lu Yuan nodded and placed his hand on the awakening crystal. The surface of the awakening crystal was very cool. It felt very comfortable to touch it. Closing his eyes, Lu Yuan followed his teacher's instruction to sense his existence. After that, he felt a stretch of darkness before his eyes. Time flowed silently as Lu Yuan's heart gradually grew increasingly nervous and uneasy. He didn't sense anything at all. Could it be that I really cannot awaken? This world isn't safe. It's always better to have some strength than none. Just when Lu Yuan's heart was saddled with unease, a dot of blue light manifested in the darkness. In the next instant, a blue-colored translucent cube appeared in the darkness and began to make irregular rotating movements. At that moment, the darkness shattered and white mist shrouded his perception. A gigantic double helix light pillar stood tall and imposingly in the white mist. There was a white-colored base below it, and the top of the pillar was covered by the mist. After the double helix light pillar appeared, the blue cube seemed to be attracted by it. It moved near to the light pillar and began to rotate around it. Genetic chain. Lu Yuan's heart was filled with surprise. Have I awakened? As expected, I'm indeed the mighty me. But what is this cube? Although his understanding of gene fighters wasn't much, he still knew some basic knowledge about awakening. He had never heard that a cube would appear when someone awakened. Lu Yuan then stared at the cube. At the next instant, as though he was possessed by instinct, he understood the information about the blue cube. The function of this cube was very simple and also excessively ridiculous. Evolution. It was said that gene fighters could engrave and record the genes of monsters and ferocious beasts in the land of origins to obtain genetic battle techniques. For example, the swimming ability of fishes and the flight ability of birds. It was a type of ability that was engraved and recorded in the genes. Whenever gene fighters leveled up, a new blank genetic chain would appear, giving them a chance to engrave and record new genes. However, the gene that was engraved and recorded in the blank genetic chain would be something fixed. There wouldn't be any way to continue upgrading it. Low-grade genes wouldn't bring about too much improvement, while high-grade genes might even counter-devour the host if the host wasn't cautious enough when they engraved and recorded it. So, one had to be exceptionally careful when they chose the genes. Every time they recorded and engraved a genetic battle technique, they had to ensure that the new technique was something beneficial to their existing ones. On the other hand, this cube could actually continue evolving the genes after they had been engraved and recorded. This was relatively equal to having limitless potential. Even if the gene he engraved and recorded was the weakest and most common gene, it could gradually evolve to its ultimate peak. This represented limitless potential and boundless possibilities. Footnote 1. 996 Working schedule, working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. 007 Working schedule, no rest days to speak of. You have to be there whenever you are needed. Chapter 2, Immature Youth's Misguided Self-Confidence. Translator, Lord Bluefire. Lu Yuan's heart pounded. This blue cube was simply too strong. Limitless evolution. As long as he had time, he could definitely grow to a stage that shocked and terrified everyone. The strongest in humanity? The strongest in the universe? There was hope for everything. However, what sort of thing was this cube exactly? Why would it appear during his awakening? Just when Lu Yuan was pondering, his left wrist suddenly felt a slight piercing pain. After that, he opened his eyes and discovered that the awakening crystal was currently emitting a white glow. Also, golden lines were moving around his left wrist, and they eventually formed the shape of a golden ring. Gene Battle Tattoo. This was the symbol of every awakener. This was also the key to entering the land of origins. The manifestation of the Gene Battle Tattoo also proved that Lu Yuan had successfully awakened as a gene fighter. Gene Battle Tattoo? Lu Yuan, you've awakened. His teacher's shocked voice rang out. The students below were also in an uproar, filled with shock. Lu Yuan actually awakened. He is usually so quiet and reticent. To think that he could actually awaken? Humph, so what if he has awakened? Things are so dangerous for gene fighters, maybe some accidents might happen to him. The gazes of the students looking at Lu Yuan were filled with envy and jealousy. Some girls even looked at Lu Yuan with a strange light in their eyes. Honestly speaking, Lu Yuan was relatively handsome. It was just that his personality was more to the gloomy and antisocial side. Also, due to him experiencing the mutation incident, no one dared to get close to him. But now that he had awakened, Lu Yuan's attractiveness immediately rose by a few levels, causing some young girls to feel their desires stirring. As humanity's high-end combat force, gene fighters could be considered to have a very high status. After hearing the discussions of the students below, he completely didn't take their words to heart. In truth, not many people would really hope that you could lead a better life than them. Anyway, Lu Yuan had long since passed the age of arguing. It was good as long as he could do his own things. After Lu Yuan awakened, the originally strict face of the teacher finally revealed a smile. He looked at Lu Yuan and gently spoke. Student Lu Yuan, congratulations. In the future, you will be a gene fighter. There are still 2 months more before the college entrance examinations, so work hard and do your best to enter gene fighter academies that rank near the top. This will be beneficial to your future. Oh right, you have just awakened. You can head to the Gene Fighter Association for registration. After you register yourself, you will be able to claim $5,000 every month as subsidies. Upon hearing this, Lu Yuan was pleasantly surprised. $5,000? Although he received the Empire's child support, he only got $800 every month, and this was only sufficient for the most basic living expenses. Naturally, his school fees and school-related sundries were free of charge. In comparison, students that graduated from an ordinary university would earn around $3,000 per month. But now, Lu Yuan could get $5,000 per month even without doing anything? He suddenly felt an illusion as though he had arrived at the peak of life. After all, who wouldn't like free money? However, Lu Yuan soon regained his senses. He was someone destined to become the strongest man in the universe. How could he be satisfied by something so minor? Unless they gave him $10,000 every month. Lu Yuan nodded and smiled. Understood. Many thanks for teacher's reminder. Lu Yuan didn't feel surprised by the change in his teacher's attitude. He heard that awakeners were counted as part of a teacher's KPI, and there would be a huge monetary reward for the teachers as well. At this moment, the teacher glanced at the students below and smiled. Let us congratulate student Lu Yuan for awakening successfully. Regardless of whether the students below were willing or not, all of them applauded alongside the teacher. After that, the teacher smiled and nodded before looking at Lu Yuan. Alright, you can head down. Under the gazes of everyone, Lu Yuan returned to his seat. The awakening ceremony will continue. Next, Wang Ming. The ceremony continued but Lu Yuan paid no attention to that. Right now, he was checking out the gene battle tattoo. He could sense that this gene battle tattoo seemed to be a type of switch. Also, he could control the opening and closing of the switch via his will. He had a hunch that after turning on the switch, he should be able to enter the legendary land of origins. It was just that right now, Lu Yuan still didn't have much understanding of the land of origins. Before entering, he had to make the appropriate preparations. As of now, there were 2 more months before he had to participate in the college entrance examinations. The examination for gene fighters would surely be different compared to the normal one. Compared to peers who awakened at 16 years old, he was already slower by 2 years. It wasn't going to be simple for him to catch up and get into a good school in just 2 months. Fortunately, he had the cube that could limitlessly evolve genes. He felt that he still had hope. Lu Yuan, who had experienced life in university in his previous life, naturally understood how important a good university was to one's life. It was a better platform that could allow your future path to be smoother. No matter what, he had to do his utmost and try to enter the best Gene Fighter Academy. After he returned, he would first understand more information about the land of origins before working hard. Anyway, the term evolution cube was something coined by Lu Yuan. He felt that it was very pleasant sounding to the ears and very fitting. After Lu Yuan awakened, the remaining students were filled with more anticipation. Maybe, they also had a chance of awakening successfully? However, the reality was cruel. All the way until the last student had completed the ceremony, only Lu Yuan, among the 41 students in the class, had succeeded in awakening as a gene fighter. After the awakening ceremony concluded, the teacher put the crystal ball away. Looking at the disappointed students, he spoke. Not being able to awaken is very normal. Since you cannot become a gene fighter, you should calm yourself down and study properly to enter a good university. This is your responsibility for your own future. Lu Yuan didn't know if these students could understand the teacher's words. As for him, he had a sense of déjà vu from his previous life before he had taken the college entrance examinations. Sadly, the number of students in his previous life who understood these words was similarly not a lot. When they finally understood, things were already too late. With regard to their futures, all immature boys would have a sense of misguided confidence. They would feel that they were the main characters of their time. As long as they entered society, they would definitely become a CEO and marry a fair-skinned, beautiful young miss from a rich family as they climbed to the peak of their lives. However, in the end, the vast majority became salary workers. That's right, Lu Yuan was one of these people. For a time, Lu Yuan actually somewhat missed the previous him with a misguided sense of self-confidence. Where exactly did the sense of misguided confidence come from back then? It was different compared to the current him. He was much more realistic now. Amen, as expected of me. The teacher left after speaking, and only after that did the students in the class group together in small teams of 2s and 3s. Then they slammed their tables and grumbled. I actually didn't awaken. I thought that I would be able to awaken for sure this time around. AI, in the future, we can only study hard and be ordinary people. It seems like I can only return and inherit my family business. Luckily, my family owns a small company. At the very least, I don't have to worry about food and clothing. Livestock. When the various students were conversing, they would inadvertently cast glances over at Lu Yuan occasionally. After all, he was the only one who had awakened in their class. At this moment, a female student who was relatively pretty stood up and walked toward Lu Yuan's desk. After that, she smiled at him and spoke. Student Lu Yuan, I think our homes are quite close to each other. Do you want to go back together later? Lu Yuan glanced at her and shook his head before calmly replying, Nope. I'm used to being alone. The girl's smile stiffened. She then laughed dryly and nodded. Oh, after that, she turned around and departed. The other girls who were brimming with desire also felt their desires being extinguished when they saw this. They had no choice but to discard their plans. Lu Yuan also heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Although his personality was somewhat different from before, he wasn't that extremely antisocial. However, he truly had nothing much to talk about to students who were destined not to walk with him in the future. His original body had never conversed with any of them through the 3 years in high school. Hence, there was naturally no need to have any interactions right now. The commotion Lu Yuan caused with his awakening faded away quickly. Even though he was a gene fighter, he still had to attend culture classes. Gene fighters were not illiterate after all, and in addition, studying more in school could improve one's thought process and logical thinking ability. During the afternoon after school ended, Lu Yuan left the school and decided to walk to the Gene Fighter Association. Earlier, he had checked the map. The Gene Fighter Association was very far from the school, and he needed to walk over an hour before he could reach that place. As to why he didn't want to take a car? Other than being poor, what other reasons could there be? Although Lu Yuan had seen the appearance of this city through the memories of this body, now that he walked on the streets and glanced at the surroundings, he still felt a sense of surrealism. There were high-rise buildings all around. Neon lights were flashing and floating cars were traversing through the air. Moreover, there was a gigantic screen showing advertisements, and beautiful female celebrities could be seen dancing and singing as they smiled beautifully. There were many people on the streets. Some even had mechanical limbs, and Lu Yuan could see robots. At this moment, Lu Yuan's heart was filled with shock. It was as though he had arrived in the future. Chapter 3, Pacing Between the Edge of Life and Death. Translator, Lord Bluefire. Lu Yuan followed the trail of the public bus number 11 and walked for over an hour. He then used the map on his mobile phone to find his location. Shili City, Gene Fighter Association Southern District Branch. It was an extremely conspicuous building in this flourishing and bustling area. The building was constructed from black stones, and its width was over 200 meters. Before the main door, there were two statues of warriors roughly 50 meters tall standing at the center. They held long swords that intersected in the air, and the door was underneath that intersection. The dressing of the people entering and exiting the door was also quite different from ordinary people. Some wore armor, some wore robes, some carried swords, and there were even some people with tails. Lu Yuan somewhat suspected that these people weren't humans. Could humans actually grow a tail? However, it seemed that everyone possessed a powerful aura. In this place, Lu Yuan was like a lamb that had fallen into a pack of wolves. He drew in a deep breath and entered the door. After passing through the door and arriving at a lounge, Lu Yuan discovered the information counter in the center of the lounge at first glance. He then carefully avoided all the Gene fighters who strode around vigorously as he went to the information counter. The young woman at the information counter smiled amiably and looked at Lu Yuan. "Hello, do you have anything you need my help with? I just awakened and I want to register." The young lady pointed to the right. "The registration spot is over there, Xiao AI, bring this mister over." After the young lady spoke, a white-colored robot about 1.6 meters tall walked out. It then spoke in a melodious and vivacious lowly voice. "Mister, please come with me. Xiao AI will bring you to the registration spot for Gene fighters." After the robot Xiao AI finished speaking, it turned and walked away. Lu Yuan hurriedly followed it. When the Gene fighters saw the robot Xiao AI, they all made way for it. Lu Yuan followed it smoothly, so there was no longer a need for him to avoid the crowd. Not long later, they arrived at a room on the right of the lounge. This room was roughly about 200 square meters. There were some chairs in the center of the room and a row of windows on the side facing the entrance. There, some staff could be seen currently doing the registration. Lu Yuan swiftly swept his gaze through the room. Over 20 people seated on the chairs placed in the center of the room. Their faces were all immature and looked roughly the same age as Lu Yuan. In fact, they might be even younger than him. Lu Yuan knew that these people were probably the same as him. They must have just awakened. After the robot Xiao AI brought Lu Yuan to the room, her lowly-like voice rang out once more. "Mister, this is the registration spot. You can get a ticket from the ticketing machine and wait for your number to be called." Xiao AI pointed to a ticketing machine at the side. After that, Lu Yuan walked over and got a ticket. It was numbered B12. He glanced at the B screen window and the number now was B08. He had to wait a little while more. He then went to a corner and sat down as he waited quietly. Roughly about half an hour later, the announcement rang out and Lu Yuan's number was called. After that, Lu Yuan went to the designated booth and sat down. There was a skinny young woman within. She smiled at Lu Yuan. "Hello, are you here to complete the registration for Gene fighters?" "Yes, please give me the ticket. After that, we will need to scan your fingerprints and your pupils." Lu Yuan passed the ticket to her and after that, he followed her instructions and allowed her to scan his fingerprints and pupils. The young lady cast a glance at the screen beside her and smiled. "A citizen of the Empire, your identity number is XL1392052533232. Your name is Lu Yuan. Please verify the information and check if it's correct." A screen also appeared before Lu Yuan's eyes. Lu Yuan's photo, ID number, and name could be seen on it. Lu Yuan glanced at them before nodding to confirm the details. "Please show your Gene battle tattoo." Lu Yuan lifted his left wrist and revealed the golden patterns on it. After that, the young lady took out a black apparatus and placed it on the golden tattoo. Very soon, a sound rang out as the black apparatus flashed with green light. She smiled and spoke. Your gene battle tattoo has been confirmed. Mr. Lu Yuan, congratulations on becoming a gene fighter. May your martial destiny be a prosperous one, fighting for the existence of humanity. Many thanks. The young lady then continued with her work before she spoke. The registration is completed. You have just awakened and can now be considered a probational gene fighter. You will also receive 5,000 red maple coins as the Empire's stipend monthly, and the stipend this month has been transferred to your personal account. Also, I've activated the authority for you to log into the battle web. Your account number is your ID number and the preset password is 666,666. You can browse the battle web to check for information related to gene fighters. The Empire has also prepared free copies of Basic Spirit Chi Guiding Technique, Military Fist, and Military Swordplay for newly awakened people. They have been sent to your battle web email. Please remember to check and read through them after you return. The young lady spoke a lot. After that, she lifted her head and looked at Lu Yuan as she smiled. Might I ask if you still have any other questions? Lu Yuan was a little startled after he finished listening seriously. He quickly took out his mobile phone for a look and saw the message that $5,000 had been transferred into his account. Right now, his savings reached $5,035. This was simply a matter worthy of celebration. As for the free basic spirit chi guiding technique and whatnot, Lu Yuan still didn't have much understanding of them. He planned to look more in depth into these after he returned. Upon thinking of this, his desire to return home surged. He smiled radiantly. Nope. Thanks. No need to be polite. If you don't have any other questions, could you please give a rating for my service? Lu Yuan naturally gave her a 5-star evaluation. After that, Lu Yuan impatiently left the Gene Fighter Association. Now that he had money, Lu Yuan decided to call for a taxi after he left the building. Not a few seconds later, a floating car with no one inside stopped before Lu Yuan. The science and technology of this world were much more advanced compared to Lu Yuan's previous world. The technology of full self-automated driving, AI robotics, and even floating vehicles were already matured. According to Lu Yuan's understanding, all these were knowledge obtained by gene fighters from the land of origins. One could very well imagine how many treasures there were in the land of origins. Unable to contain his excitement, he directly went into the car and prepared to head home. Not long later, the floating car arrived at a somewhat tattered-looking district from the brightly lit district he was in. Bang, bang, bang. While in the car, Lu Yuan could faintly hear gunshots from a distance. His expression remained unchanged and remained normal. Because there was a limit to what he could spend on his living expenses, Lu Yuan's home was located in the slums. Since that was the case, the public security here wasn't that good and gunfights would happen occasionally. After all, mutation incidents existed in this world, so ferocious beasts would occasionally invade the cities. This was why ordinary humans were not prohibited from carrying weapons. This also caused districts with bad public security to be rife with gangs and crimes. Actually, the district Lu Yuan lived in could be considered pretty good already. After all, he heard that those districts had people going missing every day. Very soon, the floating car stopped outside Lu Yuan's neighborhood. Lu Yuan got down and hurriedly entered. After that, he had to carefully sidestep a few drunkards and politely refuse the prostitutes who were out soliciting before he could reach his room. It was a small room of about 20 square meters with only a bed, a study desk, and a simple toilet. It was to be expected as the rental here was very cheap, only costing $200 per month. Only after returning to his room did Lu Yuan let out a breath he was holding in. Every time he returned home, he was afraid that a stray bullet might blow his head out. In the past, he only felt like this from looking through the memories of the original body. But now that he had personally experienced it, Lu Yuan's heart was pounding in fear. He felt that he had been pacing between the edge of life and death. Wait a minute. This big bro, I seem to be rich now? His eyes brightened as he suddenly thought of this. I will go and view some properties tomorrow. I'll move away from this hell-like place. If not, he was afraid he might be killed by gunshots before he became a major character. That would then truly be the greatest loss in the history of humanity, all right. After a while, he no longer thought about this. He turned on the ancient-looking notebook on his desk and logged into the Gene Fighter website, or the Battle Web for short. He inputted the address and opened the web page before entering his ID and password. My identification number, and 666666. I've managed to log in. The first thing he did after logging in was to change his password. After that, he decided to use a nickname. He had wanted to use the nickname Fated Person, but in the end, he discovered that this name was already used. He then tried out a few other nicknames, but those already existed as well. Ultimately, Lu Yuan decided to choose Helper, a nickname that was filled with the willingness to help out. This made Lu Yuan realize that no matter which world he was in, choosing a name was always the most troublesome thing. After changing his nickname and password, Lu Yuan discovered that he had gotten an email. He opened up the email for a look and there were 3 pieces of data inside. Basic Spirit Chi Guiding Technique. Military Fist. Military Swordplay. Chapter 4, Plans, Why Are Things Different from the Introduction? Translator, Lord Bluefire. Lu Yuan opened the folder with the title Basic Spirit Chi Guiding Technique. There were only 4 pages inside. However, the very first sentence was a warning written in blood red color. The Basic Spirit Chi Guiding Technique is the official property of the Red Maple Empire, and it's forbidden for genetic fighters to privately teach others about this technique. Those who violate the rule will be punished by the death sentence. Lu Yuan's pupils involuntarily narrowed when he saw this. It's actually so strict? Seems that this is very valuable. Lu Yuan then hurriedly continued reading. The content of the Basic Spirit Chi Guiding Technique was very simple. There was only an explanation about basic knowledge of Spirit Chi and how to absorb Spirit Chi. Spirit Chi was a type of omnipotent energy that existed everywhere in the universe, and only gene fighters who had activated their gene chains could absorb and use it. Through tempering their bodies and minds, gene fighters would be able to produce Spirit Chi and also absorb Spirit Chi from the outside world. Spirit Chi could refine the genetic chain, which in turn nourished and strengthened the body and spirit. When an awakened genetic chain was completely refined by Spirit Chi, it would be able to activate higher-grade genetic chains by employing special methods. This was also a way for gene fighters to improve themselves. Lu Yuan was enlightened. Only with Spirit Chi could a gene fighter's power be completely unleashed. With it, he could improve himself unceasingly. No wonder there would be a warning written in blood red. Only gene fighters who had finished registering themselves would be able to obtain the Spirit Chi guiding technique gifted by the authorities. Since that was the case, gene fighters who didn't register themselves naturally wouldn't be able to have something like this. Usually, the majority of gene fighters who didn't register themselves were characters that preferred staying out of sight. Without the basic Spirit Chi guiding technique, refining genetic chains would become extremely difficult for these people. It could be considered that Lu Yuan understood the meaning of the warning. Naturally, such a method wouldn't be able to prevent some people from taking a risk out of desperation. At this moment, Lu Yuan solemnly memorized the content of the Spirit Chi guiding technique as he planned to cultivate it properly later on. After that, Lu Yuan looked at the other 2 pieces of data. The military fist and military swordplay were basic physical training techniques used by the Red Maple Empire. They were a fist art and sword art. If one were to practice these 2 physical training techniques for a long period, they would be able to improve their physical strength and even their mental strength. In addition, these were killing techniques that could be used for practical combat. There were videos on the military fist and military swordplay. A middle-aged man with a cold demeanor clad in a military uniform was teaching the 2 techniques. The guidance was very detailed, and text was also provided for explanation. Hence, Lu Yuan didn't feel that they were difficult to learn. He planned to properly practice these 2 physical training techniques later. After properly saving the data in the folders, Lu Yuan started to surf the battle web. There were many segments on the battle web: the trading segment, combat segment, mission segment, etc. The first page consisted of some major news regarding the circle of gene fighters. Shocking news. The Ice Snow Princess Siting Xue, who disappeared for half a year, actually has broken through to the Battle Master level. The Mystic 9 Battle King has become the 6th Battle King level expert of the Great Revelation Planet's humans that successfully barges into the Great Rock Secret Realm. Lu Yuan browsed through them quickly and finally found the segment containing information on the Land of Origins. There were several forum posts about the Land of Origins in this segment. Many of the posts required the user to pay a fee before they could gain entry, but some provided information for free. The free information posts were usually those issued by the officials, which gave some basic information on the Land of Origins. And for Lu Yuan, who planned to enter the Land of Origins, he precisely lacked such information. He clicked into a forum post. What preparation work do you need to do if you are entering the Land of Origins for the first time? For the majority of awakened gene fighters, they would have guidance from their elders before they entered the Land of Origins. For people like them, the information here is useless to them. The information in this post is targeted at newbies who don't have gene fighter elders to guide them. If you are a newbie, please seriously read on, as this will help you a lot. First point, let's talk about the first time you guide spirit chi. Before entering the land of origins, you have to absorb your first portion of spirit chi. Because only by possessing spirit chi will you be able to open up the space within your battle gene tattoo. Although the excavated space of probational gene fighters is very small, it can still allow you to bring some things with you. In the future, you can only depend on this space to bring out your gains from the land of origins. This is very important. Second point, it's about the choice of items that you should bring when you enter the land of origins for the first time. Firstly, scientific weapons produced in the outside world are useless in the land of origins. So, you don't have to think about using Gauss guns or high-energy explosive bombs. If you are a newbie that has a certain amount of capital, we recommend you to purchase some good genetic armaments. This will allow you to be stronger compared to others of the same level, so you will have a lead at the starting line. If you don't have enough money to purchase the armaments, you can only bring some necessities, and these necessities are listed below. Third point, as newbies, you guys must know that you can only enter the land of origins for 24 hours for the first time. Every second of these 24 hours is extremely precious because you can obtain spirit crystals when you kill the monsters in the land of origins and use the crystals to improve your cultivation. As long as you can leave the land of origins alive, you will be able to bring your harvests back to reality. To gene fighters, this is the only shortcut to getting stronger. Also, the spirit crystals are merely items of the lowest value in the land of origins. When the monsters die, they have a small chance of dropping genetic armaments, extraordinary genes, precious items, etc. All these are extremely valuable. When you are adventuring in the land of origins, you might even come across ruins and might be able to obtain technology or transcendent knowledge from it. The value of these things is unimaginable, and it's the best opportunity for you to earn your first pot of gold. So, please use these 24 hours properly. Fourth point, if you have friends you can trust enough, you guys can adventure together and make use of the gene battle tattoo to establish an alliance. As to how spoils will be distributed, this naturally means equal distribution, so conflict and fights can be avoided. Moreover, other than humans in the initial city, there will be other races too. Please maintain your vigilance toward these other races. Fifth point, newly awakened newbies will have anchor points in their gene battle tattoos. These anchor points will also determine the initial city you will arrive at in the land of origins. As everyone knows, all the initial cities in the land of origins have existed long ago, and it's impossible for us to monopolize them. We, humans from the Great Revelation planet, have 4 initial cities we will arrive at. They are separately known as Storm City, Bone City, Sandstone City, and Blood Secret Castle. Next, I will introduce the advantages and disadvantages of these 4 initial cities. The text was at least 10,000 words long. After seriously reading them all, Lu Yuan finally could be considered to have a general understanding of the land of origins. The land of origins was a magical place that possessed boundless treasures. In the land of origins, one would only be able to bring back their gains if they left safely. If they died, they would lose everything. In fact, death would injure their mental states, and they had to wait for a certain amount of time to pass before they could enter the land of origins again. This influence was too great. There were 2 methods if one wanted to exit the land of origins. The first was to wait for the remaining time to end, and the second was to make use of an escape tool to flee the land of origins. Both methods could allow one to bring their gains out. However, escape tools were very precious. Lu Yuan's face had the word poverty written on it, so how could he afford to buy one? Let alone escape tools, Lu Yuan couldn't even afford to buy genetic armaments. He had checked the trading area earlier. Even the lowest grade genetic armaments cost $10,000 at the very least. Lu Yuan rubbed his forehead. Why am I so poor? Could it be that I still have to bust my liver to earn money after coming to this world? There must be a problem somewhere. Lu Yuan was somewhat reluctant to believe in this truth. After that, he checked a few more forum posts and finally had a general understanding of the preparation work he had to do before venturing into the land of origins. He also finished his planning. Firstly, he had to cultivate the spirit chi guiding technique, absorbing spirit chi and opening up the gene battle tattoo space. Secondly, he had to shop for necessities tomorrow and buy an alloy weapon he felt comfortable with. Since he couldn't afford genetic armaments, he would have to make do with common alloy weapons. Thirdly, if he had the time to do so, he would practice the military fist and military swordplay to enhance his personal strength. It was because he didn't want to die the first time he entered. That would be too hurtful. After confirming the steps he had to take, Lu Yuan shut the computer down. He then went to his bed and sat cross-legged, planning to breathe in spirit chi. According to the basic spirit chi guiding technique, I have to first close my eyes and empty my mind, allowing myself to be in a drowsy and vacant state. I should be able to sense spirit qi after that. Lu Yuan recalled the information as he closed his eyes. However, the moment Lu Yuan closed his eyes, he immediately sensed numerous white dots of light around him. These white dots of light all got close to Lu Yuan, dancing around him as though they were in a jubilant manner. Lu Yuan? He was somewhat astonished. Spirit qi? Why is there so much? Wrong, I haven't emptied my mind yet. Why would I already be able to sense spirit qi? Why is this somewhat different from the introduction? Chapter 5, Li Qinghe. Translator, Lord Bluefire. Lu Yuan was somewhat astonished as he looked at the floating and dancing spirit qi particles in his consciousness. After falling silent, he cautiously used the method described in the basic spirit qi guiding technique to absorb the spirit qi particles. The moment he breathed in, all the spirit qi particles seemed to be attracted by a magnet. They lunged toward Lu Yuan with flying speed and melded into his body. In his consciousness, the spirit qi particles passed through the white mist and fused with the double helix genetic chain. Originally, the light emitted by the double helix genetic chain was dimmer. But gradually, from the bottommost part, its glow began to intensify. As the genetic chain became increasingly brighter, Lu Yuan felt his body growing warm. There seemed to be some swelling in his glabella and his mind became clearer and clearer. This feeling caused joy in Lu Yuan's heart. According to what was happening now, the spirit qi was refining his genetic chain, and the genetic chain was nourishing his body and mind in turn. There seemed to be no problem. The only problem was that his speed of absorbing spirit qi seemed to be much quicker than what the basic spirit qi guiding technique introduced. In the introduction of the basic spirit qi guiding technique, it stated that people with relatively good talents usually needed 3 to 5 days for the entire process. For people with average talent, they might require 10 days to half a month. However, Lu Yuan succeeded the moment he closed his eyes. What sort of talent could this be considered as? Could this be due to the evolution cube? Lu Yuan stared at the revolving blue-colored cube as he felt joy in his heart. As expected of me. At this moment, Lu Yuan's consciousness swelled and a small-scale space split apart from it. This space was originally the size of a fist, but as he continued to absorb spirit qi, it gradually grew larger. Finally, the space became the size of roughly a cubic meter. Although there was nothing in this tiny space, Lu Yuan could sense the connection between him and it. He instinctively knew what this space was. Wasn't this what the forum post earlier had mentioned? A space would be excavated by his gene battle tattoo the first time he absorbed spirit qi? However, according to what the post stated, it seemed that it was exceptionally difficult to excavate such a space. Because of it, Lu Yuan didn't even dare to imagine that it would be so easy for him to excavate it. Everything was extremely smooth. It was just that this space was a little tiny. When the space no longer grew, Lu Yuan opened his eyes. After that, he saw a stream of dawn light entering his room and couldn't help but be startled. He immediately turned on his mobile phone and glanced at it. 6:34 a.m. It's actually already morning? He somehow felt that only a few minutes had passed, not expecting that it had been so long. Amazingly, his mental state was still very clear. It felt even clearer than after having a very high-quality sleep. Is this the effect of spirit energy? It's pretty amazing. Lu Yuan then got off his bed. After washing himself up, he left his room. However, when Lu Yuan had just opened the building's door, he saw a woman with a pair of beautiful bright large eyes pushing the door open as she walked in. She had exquisite makeup on and was wearing a tight-fitting dress. After seeing Lu Yuan, the woman smiled. Younger brother Lu Yuan, are you heading to class? Lu Yuan nodded. Amen, elder sister Qinghe, have you just finished work? It must have been tough on you. Hee hee. Just so coincidentally, I bought a few extra buns here. Why don't you take them and eat them on the way? Li Qinghe smiled brightly and lifted the buns in her hand. Lu Yuan felt a slight warmth in his heart and laughed. Elder sister Qinghe, you seem to have bought too many buns every time. Lu Yuan moved out of the welfare agency a year ago and came to reside here. But then Li Qinghe had stayed here even longer than Lu Yuan. The life of a weak and helpless female living alone in the slums was naturally extremely difficult. In order to live, she had to be willing to give up everything. However, to Lu Yuan, Li Qinghe was a good elder sister that showed relatively much care and concern for him. In the memories of this original body, after Li Qinghe learned that Lu Yuan was an orphan and his monthly allowance was very low, she would always buy extra breakfast and give it to Lu Yuan after she returned. She would also often talk about the precautions and major matters he needed to pay attention to in this district, telling him when he should hide away and whom he couldn't afford to antagonize. If it wasn't for Li Qinghe, Lu Yuan might not have survived until now. From the deepest of the original body's heart, Lu Yuan was extremely grateful to Li Qinghe. She was one of the few sources of warmth in his heart after he became an orphan. The original body had always wanted to help Li Qinghe. But sadly, he couldn't even earn enough to keep himself alive, let alone help others. Lu Yuan suddenly thought of something. He was already a gene fighter. Not long later, he would move away from this place, and at that time, he could help Li Qinghe to find a good job for her, bringing her away from this chaotic district. After seeing the smile on Lu Yuan's face, Li Qinghe started. A strange light flashed in her eyes as she surveyed Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan was a little puzzled. What's the matter? Li Qinghe laughed. I only feel that younger brother Lu Yuan seems a little different from before. You wouldn't smile like this yesterday. Lu Yuan came to a realization and understood that the degree of his transformation was a little great. Li Qinghe was someone from the slums and had met various types of people before. She was most probably quite sensitive in this aspect. He then laughed. Actually, I encountered something good. What is it? Yesterday, I awakened as a gene fighter. I feel that my life might be different now, so I decided to change a little. Upon hearing this, Li Qinghe started and revealed a surprised smile. She went over and patted Lu Yuan on his shoulder. Congratulations to you, younger brother Lu Yuan. In the future, you will be a major character. It's not certain yet. However, I definitely don't have to stay in the slums anymore in the future. It would be pretty good to leave here. Li Qinghe nodded in agreement. Lu Yuan looked at Li Qinghe and smiled. Sister Qinghe, when I leave, I will find a good job for you and bring you together with me. Li Qinghe was startled. She then took out a packet of cigarettes from her pocket and took one out skillfully, lighting it and taking a puff. Her right hand was supported by her left as she puffed out white smoke. She smiled, looking at Lu Yuan. Why? You don't regard this elder sister with disdain? Lu Yuan then replied with a straight face. I've always remembered those who treat me well and those who treat me vilely. Elder sister Qinghe is the only one here that treats me well. Since Lu Yuan inherited the memories of this body, although he had no other thoughts toward Li Qinghe, he also treated her as an elder sister that cared for him. If he could help her, he would naturally lend her a hand. Li Qinghe fell silent. After that, she laughed and rubbed Lu Yuan on his hair. Right now, the situation is not set yet. Let's talk again when the time comes. Take the buns and go to school first, don't be late for your class. Elder sister Qin doesn't know much about matters of gene fighters, but you should handle those step by step and remember to always pay attention to your safety first. I'll make a move first then. Lu Yuan helplessly tidied his messed up hair. He then took 2 buns and went out of the building's door. Meanwhile, Li Qinghe glanced at the tightly closed door and fell silent. She then snuffed out the cigarette in her hand and chewed on a bun. She walked to Lu Yuan's room. After standing there for a while, she narrowed her bright large eyes and stepped forward, moving through the door and entering the room. After that, the door behind her shut tightly. As Li Qinghe chewed on the bun, she glanced at the surroundings. At this moment, her eyes landed on an old notebook as well as the 3-step plan that Lu Yuan had prepared for the sake of entering the land of origins. She walked over and looked, then she laughed. The antisocial little boy has really grown up. She shook her head and left through the door, returning to the building's lounge. After that, she continued to eat her buns before returning to her own room. Actually, Lu Yuan didn't go to school. This original body might be antisocial, but he was pretty intelligent. His results in the cultural classes had always been near the top. As expected of my previous life, Lu Yuan naturally didn't need to worry about the cultural classes, having applied for leave from the teacher in charge. He planned to use the remaining time to focus on improving as a gene fighter. The teacher naturally could understand this point and directly agreed to his request with no objections. For the following 2 months, Lu Yuan could choose not to attend classes. Hence, he wanted to go to the shopping district today. That's right, he had to prepare some necessities for his trip to the land of origins. As the saying goes, with rations in hand, panic does not appear in one's heart. It was the same thing for money. Holding his card that contained over $5,000, Lu Yuan felt as though he owned this entire world. Even the way he walked was tinged with a little arrogance. He wore his best clothes, which were also his school uniform, and strode with large steps into the shopping district as he began to shop. The purchasing power of the red maple coins was slightly stronger compared to the RMB asterisk in his previous life, but it wasn't that much stronger. $5,000 actually wasn't considered a lot. Luckily, what Lu Yuan bought were all common goods. Compressed biscuits that were used by the military, energy bars, filling bread, and bottled water. He also purchased insect repellent that was necessary for survival out in the wild, deodorant, ropes, etc. Originally, Lu Yuan planned to buy a sleeping bag and a tent, but after thinking that he could only spend 24 hours there, he decided to save money. Leave the sleep to the dead. If he lived, he could always sleep after he exited the land of origins. However, just all these miscellaneous items already cost roughly $1,000. He only had $4,000 remaining. Lu Yuan then took the money and went to the alloy weapon shop in the shopping district. 1. RMB equals renminbi, China's currency. All dollar equals RMB for this series. Chapter 6, Fu Langming, Madam. Translator, Lord Bluefire. When Lu Yuan came out from the alloy weapon shop, he was in a daze. At this moment, there was an additional 1.5 meters big, pitch-black sword that was gleaming in cold light in his battle tattoo space. A 1-type blacklight alloy sword. It was the lowest grade alloy equipment, but it cost Lu Yuan $3,700. And this was a price Lu Yuan had gotten after he kept on haggling. Otherwise, it'd be $3,900, a whole $200 more. Lu Yuan had initially thought of wanting to buy armor, but by the looks of it, back then, why did he have the confidence that he'd be able to buy both a weapon and armor with just $4,000? Lu Yuan then looked at the $300 in his pocket. He had previously thought of changing the environment to live in, but he didn't even dare to think of that now. What is it that shrouded my eyes? It's poverty. After leaving the shopping district, Lu Yuan didn't even dare to turn back for an additional look. He had taken a taxi to the shopping district. But now, he only had $300 left in his pockets, which he'd need for food. Hence, he had no choice but to walk back. Fortunately, after absorbing spirit chi, Lu Yuan realized that his stamina was a lot better than before, and he had also gotten a little stronger. Although the shopping district was over 10 kilometers away from the slums, he jogged his way back, taking only slightly over half an hour to arrive. The slums looked a lot more harmonious during the day than at night. The passers-by along the streets were busy on their way, some of them looking lean and haggard. Unfortunately, both sides of the road were covered in trash. There were children picking trash by the roadside, bringing back the useful things home. On the sides, there were a few ruffians who had dyed their hair into varying colors. They had their hands in their pockets, occasionally looking at the passers-by as they kept on shaking their bodies. Not looking at them, Lu Yuan lowered his head slightly, entering the district he lived in and then his rental apartment. The living room was very quiet. The apartment he rented had a total of 4 rooms. One belonged to him, one to elder sister Qinghe, and 2 others that a middle-aged woman and a couple lived in respectively. However, the middle-aged woman and the couple usually left very early in the day, so there were very few chances of them meeting. Elder sister Qinghe, on the other hand, worked at night. Therefore, she should be sleeping now. Lu Yuan closed the door gently and entered his room. Thereafter, he switched on his laptop and logged on to the battle web. He then started to watch the videos on the military fist and military swordplay. The space in the room was very small. Thankfully, Lu Yuan was only in the beginning phase of his training, so his movements were very slow. Therefore, he didn't knock into things and cause any damage. Lu Yuan continued until the sun set. He was covered in sweat and he put away the blacklight alloy sword in his hand to sit down on his bed to rest. At this moment, the sound of a door opening and then closing rang out from outside. Lu Yuan knew that it was elder sister Qinghe who had gone off to work. Lu Yuan couldn't help but let out a sigh. If it was in his previous life, a girl like Li Qinghe would be liked by many guys and receive their adoration. It wouldn't be like how things were in this world, where even surviving was difficult. After some rest, Lu Yuan sat down cross-legged and started absorbing spirit chi. As he absorbed it, his body started to feel warm. His fatigued body also felt quite relieved. To Lu Yuan's surprise, when his body was fatigued, there'd be a better effect when he cultivated the spirit chi guiding technique than when it wasn't. It was no wonder they said that physical training techniques were effective in raising one's spirit chi. So this was why. The relationship between the physical body and mental energy to spirit chi was both opposing and complementary. The next morning, Lu Yuan headed out, planning to look for a quiet place outside to practice physical training techniques. Just then, the door opened and Li Qinghe entered. She was holding Shengjian's star. When she saw Lu Yuan, she smiled and said, "Younger brother Lu Yuan, here, I bought too many." Lu Yuan smiled. "Thank you, elder sister Qinghe." He reached out his hand to take the Shengjians from her. "Oh right, younger brother Lu Yuan, are you practicing fist techniques? How does elder sister Qinghe know? You were so loud last night that I heard it from my room." Lu Yuan was stunned for a moment. He knew that the soundproofing of the rooms wasn't good because he often heard the couple making noises at night. However, he didn't expect that the sound of him practicing fist techniques would be heard as well. He nodded. "I'm planning to enter the land of origins, so I'll have to practice defensive physical training techniques." "Oh," Li Qinghe nodded, wearing an expression as if she didn't really understand. She then said, I know of a place that's good for practicing fist techniques. Lu Yuan was stunned and he looked at Li Qinghe. Really? Where is it? He was about to go look for a quiet place to practice physical training techniques, but he didn't expect Li Qinghe to know of one. What he wanted came to him. Was this the legendary main lead treatment? As expected of me. This sister has been in the slums for quite some time. There's a friend I know who opened a dojo. You can practice your fist techniques there. I'll bring you there later. Sister, you're going to bring me there? Will I be disturbing your rest? It's tiring for you to work at night too. Li Qinghe took out a cigarette from her chest, lit it, and took a puff. She then smiled heartily and said, It won't take much time for me to bring you there. After hearing her reply, Lu Yuan nodded in agreement. After having breakfast, Li Qinghe brought Lu Yuan out. On the way, both Li Qinghe and Lu Yuan had their heads lowered slightly. Both of them seemed to be in a slight rush. Look less, hear less, and not meddle in other people's businesses. This was what Li Qinghe had taught Lu Yuan. It was how ordinary people in the slums lived. The both of them took a few turns along some streets that had a stench and then finally arrived in front of an extremely battered-looking metal door. The door with the big words Daming Dojo * above it was flickering with neon lights that seemed to be a little spoiled. Outside the door, a few strong men were squatting at the side and smoking. When the two of them got near, the few men raised their heads to take a look. After seeing Li Qinghe, their eyes lit up. A man who had a scar on his left eye even whistled flirtatiously. Lu Yuan frowned, but Li Qinghe smiled charmingly at that man. The scarred man stood up and said, smiling, Miss, aren't you quite coquettish looking? Are you here to look for me? Li Qinghe smiled and said, I'm here to look for Brother Ming. Hearing these, the other few men who were raring to make a move paused. The smile of the scarred man also froze. After that, he didn't say a word and quietly squatted down to continue smoking. Lu Yuan felt a little puzzled as he looked at the few strong men who became silent. Li Qinghe said to him, Come with me. Lu Yuan followed Li Qinghe and entered the place. It was a huge drill ground with quite a lot of equipment and facilities. There were metal dummies, gym facilities, boxing rings, and others. Many people were shouting as they did physical training and practiced their fist techniques. Some were even practicing blade techniques and other fighting techniques. Lu Yuan watched as a strong man with a mechanical arm punched heavily onto a metal dummy, causing it to become deformed. He felt a little surprised that there was such a place in the slums. He asked curiously, Elder Sister Qinghe, who is Brother Ming? How did you get to know him? Li Qinghe raised her brows at Lu Yuan, revealing a strange smile. Young brother, are you sure that you want to know? How detailed do you want to know? Upon hearing this answer, Lu Yuan's lips twitched and he laughed dryly. Forget it. Li Qinghe smiled and then led Lu Yuan into the dojo. In the depths of the dojo, a strong man almost 2 meters tall with brown hair was punching a metal dummy. He wore a black tight-fitted singlet and had exaggerated muscles all over his body. Bang 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 bang. Each punch was very heavy, leaving deep marks on the dummy. Lu Yuan's pupils contracted upon seeing this. This was actual metal. To think that this guy could leave such punch marks on it. Was this guy still human? Could he be a gene fighter? When Lu Yuan and Li Qinghe got close, the strong man stopped his actions and then turned to look toward them. His gaze swept at Lu Yuan and then stopped on Li Qinghe. After that, he broke into a strange smile and spoke in a rough voice. Why have you come? Li Qinghe got close while smiling, gently poking the strong man's chest. Isn't it because I miss you? The strong man turned to look toward Lu Yuan. Who is this kid? He's my younger brother. I'm thinking of letting him train at your place for a little, so he'll be able to protect himself. Your younger brother? Let him train here then. I won't ask you for money. The strong man was surprisingly easy to talk to, waving his hand and agreeing to it right away. Lu Yuan thought that this person would be very fierce. Li Qinghe spoke up, Younger brother Lu Yuan, he is the boss here, Fu Langming. You can call him Brother Ming. Lu Yuan quickly nodded and said, smiling. Thank you, Brother Ming. Fu Langming waved his hand and broke into a shameless smile. Feel free to look around by yourself. Qinghe, come in with me. After saying that, he turned to enter a room at the side. Li Qinghe then gave Lu Yuan a weird smile and said, Go look around by yourself. I'll be going in. Lu Yuan. He nodded, feeling very complicated inside. Was such a dealing something that an underaged kid like him could see? When Li Qinghe entered the room and closed the door, Fu Langming had closed the curtains. Unlike what Lu Yuan thought, Fu Langming was standing very straight. He looked at Li Qinghe. Madam. Li Qinghe lit a cigarette and sat on the brown real leather sofa, crossing her legs. Fu Langming snuck a look at Li Qinghe and asked carefully, Madam, that kid outside, who on earth is he? Li Qinghe smiled and said, A younger brother I met by chance. He's quite a kind-hearted child. He has just awakened his genes and hasn't entered the land of origins. I plan on letting him train over at your place. Just teach him as you see fit. Fu Langming understood. He patted his brick-like chest. No problem. Leave it to me, but don't overdo it and expose yourself. Your subordinate understands. I'll go out after staying for a little longer. Li Qinghe then took out her phone and started to play a game. Fu Langming looked hesitant but still said, Madam, can you stay a little longer? Li Qinghe looked up at Fu Langming. Reason? Cough. If the time is too short, it won't sound too good. Li Qinghe squinted her eyes and revealed a brilliant smile. All of a sudden, Fu Langming's countenance turned pale and he quickly added, No, I was wrong. You make the call. Li Qinghe withdrew her smile. She then thought of something and said, Oh, right. There's a man outside with a scar on his left eye. I don't wish to see him again. I understand. 1. Xingjian Mantu, Xingjian Bao, or Xingjian for short, is a type of small, pan-fried baozi which is a specialty of Shanghai. 2. The Ming from the dojo's name might be taken from Fu Langming's name. Chapter 7, Your aptitude isn't bad. Translator, Lord Bluefire. 5 minutes later, Li Qinghe finished her matching game and stood up, walking toward the door. You don't have to come out. Fu Langming, who was standing straight, heaved a sigh of relief. Yes. When Lu Yuan, who was practicing his military fist in a corner, saw Li Qinghe coming out, he quickly walked over. Elder sister Qinghe, are you all right? Li Qinghe broke into an ambiguous smile. What can happen to me? Brother Ming and I have known each other for very long. Lu Yuan. He fell silent for a moment before saying, I have to thank elder sister Qinghe this time. I'm still waiting for younger brother Lu Yuan to make it big and bring me out from this damn place in the future. Li Qinghe patted Lu Yuan's shoulder, smiling. Hearing this, Lu Yuan looked at Li Qinghe and nodded seriously. Don't worry, I will. Alright, we'll talk about other things in the future. Brother Ming has agreed for you to be practicing here. After he comes out, you can go and ask him to teach you. Lu Yuan nodded. I'll be going back first then. I'm so sleepy. Li Qinghe covered her mouth with her hand and let out a yawn. She then bade goodbye to Lu Yuan and left Daming Dojo. Lu Yuan continued practicing his military fist. A few minutes later, Fu Langming came out as well, wearing a satisfied smile on his face. Lu Yuan took a look and then lowered his head slightly. Fu Langming saw Lu Yuan and walked over, revealing his white teeth as he grinned. Lu Yuan, is it? I heard from Qinghe that you want to practice physical training techniques here? Are you learning military fist and military sword play? Lu Yuan nodded. That's right. Fu Langming assessed Lu Yuan and then said, let me take a look at them. Lu Yuan took a deep breath and started executing the military fist. Lu Yuan had only been practicing the military fist for less than a day. Although he had learned the moves, his flow wasn't smooth. However, Lu Yuan's strength wasn't weak, so even though he wasn't skillful at it, his punches still seemed strong. In the beginning, Fu Langming, who was at the side, didn't seem too interested. But then his expression gradually became solemn. As he looked at the fist wind, a stunned expression appeared on his face. The power of this fist force didn't seem like it came from a new gene fighter who hadn't entered the land of origins before. After performing a set of fist techniques, Lu Yuan's face was a little flushed and he was panting slightly. He then turned and looked at Fu Langming, realizing that Fu Langming looked stunned. Lu Yuan paused. What is it? Fu Langming came back to his senses, his expression looking a little strange as he asked, Qinghe said that you were awakened the day before? Lu Yuan nodded. That's right, brother Ming. Is there any problem? Fu Langming was silent for a moment and said, Come, give me a punch. Lu Yuan was stunned and looked at Fu Langming. Brother Ming, are you asking me to punch you? Why? You're afraid that you'd hurt me? Hurry up and do it. Fu Langming revealed an expression that had a hint of impatience on it. Lu Yuan's lips twitched. This Fu Langming was very strong and Lu Yuan wasn't his opponent. What could he do? He should just throw a punch then. After drawing his fist back in a lunge position, he twisted his waist and smashed his punch out. As a result, fist wind seeded and his fist flew toward Fu Langming's chest. Sensing that fist wind, Fu Langming's pupils contracted a little. He raised his big palm and stopped Lu Yuan's fist. Lu Yuan realized that his fist seemed to have hit a strong metal wall and was unable to advance any further. However, Fu Langming's body didn't even move in the slightest. This made him even more certain that the difference between his and Fu Langming's strength wasn't just a little. He was still very weak. Just as Lu Yuan's mind was wandering off, Fu Langming's voice rang out. Did you really just awaken? Lu Yuan looked at Fu Langming, feeling a little puzzled. This was the second time he was asked this question. Was there something wrong with him? Lu Yuan was a little puzzled. Yes, I just awakened. Fu Langming looked at Lu Yuan with a strange gaze. How long did it take you to sense spirit qi when you first tried to move it? And how long did it take you to absorb it later? Lu Yuan was surprised. Only then did he realize what his problem was. He seemed to be too amazing. His power was a little strong and didn't seem like a Jin fighter who had just awakened. However, there was no way he could say that he was able to sense spirit qi without meditation. This was too absurd. Lu Yuan thought about it for a moment before saying, "It took me less than half a day to absorb spirit qi. An instant was also considered to be less than half a day, right?" Lu Yuan changed his way of saying things. Upon hearing Lu Yuan's words, Fu Longming's eyes were wide open. He then let out a dry cough, breaking into a slight smile. Cough. Lu Yuan, is it? Since Qinghe has left you to me, I'll reluctantly accept you as my disciple since your aptitude isn't bad. How about it? Lu Yuan was a little stunned and then he asked. Brother Ming, are you very strong? Fu Langming was about to say something when he suddenly remembered Qinghe's reminder earlier. Hence, he forced himself to shut up. He then said, cough, although I have just broken through to become a tier 1 fighter, I'll become very strong in the future. Lu Yuan? Just that? Only a fighter? Isn't he not that much stronger than me then? At least I have limitless potential. Lu Yuan was instantly speechless, so he let out a dry laugh and then said, Brother Ming is really amazing, but I haven't gone to university yet. We'll see after I've started to attend university. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Fu Langming frowned slightly. He could clearly hear the half-heartedness in Lu Yuan's voice. However, since Lu Yuan had been brought here by Qinghe, Fu Langming didn't dare to do anything to Lu Yuan. He only wore a forced smile and nodded. All right then. We'll talk about this after you've gone to university. Lu Yuan looked at Fu Langming with some surprise. He thought that Fu Langming would fly into a rage, but he didn't expect him not to be angry at all. Seemed like he was a good guy. However, Lu Yuan probably would have to keep a low profile in the future. At the very least, when things weren't safe enough, he mustn't appear too amazing. Fu Langming continued talking. If you want to become good at physical training techniques, training alone won't work. I'll arrange a few opponents for you. You'll spar with them. After saying that, Fu Langming turned and called a strong man who was practicing fist techniques not far away. Little Tiger. The strong man turned his head, wearing a simple-minded smile on his rectangular face. He then came running over. Brother Ming, go up to the ring and have a round with this kid. Huh? This beansprout? Little Tiger looked at Lu Yuan and couldn't help but break into a bitter expression. I'm afraid that he will end up dying because I failed to hold back. Why not get someone else? Hearing that, Lu Yuan raised his brows slightly, not saying anything. Stop with the crap. You do it. Otherwise, I'll spar against you. Hearing this, Little Tiger quickly became solemn. All right. I'll do it right now. Only then did Fu Langming nod in satisfaction. The two of you, come with me. He led the two of them to an arena. At this moment, two strong men were sparring in the arena, landing heavy punches on each other. Their bodies and faces were covered in bruises. Many people under the arena were watching the battle, cheering and booing non-stop. Old cat. Can you do it? Straight punch. Right hook. CK him up. Mountain boar. Use more force. Did you not King eat? Beat him. Beat that SSY up. However, the people watching the fight immediately made way when they saw Fu Langming coming over. Some of them looked at Fu Langming and the other two curiously, especially at Lu Yuan, who was an unfamiliar face to them. Fu Langming slapped the arena's floor, making loud sounds. Stop. Fu Langming's words were very effective here. The two men who had been fighting intensely a moment ago punched each other once and then retreated. The two of them rubbed the wounds on their faces, panting heavily while glaring at each other. After that, they looked in Fu Langming's direction. Brother Ming. Fu Langming beckoned at them and then said, Come down. We're changing fighters. Changing fighters? Not only were Old Cat and Mountain Boar stunned, but so were the people watching the fight. Someone then asked in anticipation, Is Brother Ming planning on having a round in the ring? Little Tiger is the sandbag? That's great. Hurry up and start. Hurry up and start. Brother Ming is amazing. When Little Tiger heard everyone's words, he continued to wear a simple-minded smile. He then scratched his head and said, Brothers, you'll be disappointed. Brother Ming isn't going to fight. The ones fighting in the ring will be me and this beansprout here. Little Tiger pointed at Lu Yuan. At this moment, everyone sized up Lu Yuan and was instantly disappointed. Him? He isn't even as thick as my arm. Won't you have to pray that he doesn't die after punching him? A new face? Why is SSY like him not receiving guests at Golden Glow Entertainment Club but coming here? Hey! SSY. You won't get so scared later that you piss yourself in the pants, would you? Ha 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 ha. Everyone whistled and laughed at Lu Yuan. Brother Ming crossed his thick arms and was also laughing loudly. He looked at Lu Yuan mockingly. How is it, kid, are you up for it? Lu Yuan raised his brows and took a look at them. After that, he quietly rolled up his sleeves. I'll give it a try. Little Tiger scratched his head while wearing a simple-minded smile. I won't be paying for the medical bills if I end up beating you up till you can't get up. Lu Yuan tugged his lips. I don't need you to pay for it. Since both of you have come to an agreement, the two of you can go up now. Under everyone's whistles, Lu Yuan and Little Tiger got up onto the arena. Chapter 8, As Expected of My Brother Yuan. Translator, Lord Bluefire. In the arena, Lu Yuan and Little Tiger faced each other. Fu Langming, who was below, patted the floor. Start. The two of them looked at each other. Little Tiger scratched his head and smiled simple-mindedly, saying, You can attack first. The audience was also shouting, SSY. Hurry. Hurry and attack. This is your only chance. That's right. Give Little Tiger a punch. This is a man's pride. Prove that you're at least not SSY. Lu Yuan, who was in the ring, grinned. He then used a technique from the military fist and took a step forward. His body, nurtured by the genetic chain, erupted in power, rapidly charging up to Little Tiger. He twisted his waist and swung his arm, punching out straight for Little Tiger's chest. Fist wind blew. Upon feeling the strength of the fist wind, Little Tiger's smile froze. He quickly pressed both hands down to put up a block in front of Lu Yuan's fist. Bang! Little Tiger's blocking hands hit his own chest due to the punch's impact, and his countenance changed. His body kept backing off and he almost fell off the ring. The intense pain caused his countenance to change drastically, turning a little pale. After that, he raised his head and looked at Lu Yuan with a hint of astonishment, not saying a word even after very long. The mocking laughter from the audience came to a stop too. Everyone looked at Lu Yuan, who was twisting his wrist, then at Little Tiger, who was holding onto his chest. All of them exchanged glances. This beansprout has such great strength? That can't be real, right? This SSY has such speed? That fist wind, it is something. At this moment, Fu Langming grinned and said, Little Tiger, I forgot to tell you. This kid is a gene fighter. If you don't wish to be beaten up until you're bedridden, you better go all out. Little Tiger? He looked at the beaming Fu Langming, feeling stunned and looking like he was on the verge of tears. Gene fighter? Brother Ming, why didn't you tell me that earlier? The other people also revealed astonished expressions, and their gazes when looking at Lu Yuan changed. To think that he is a gene fighter, no wonder. If he's a gene fighter, then it's understandable that he has such power. Gene fighters were few in numbers to begin with, and they were even rarer in such slums. Seeing a gene fighter here was as amazing as being able to see a panda. All the audience sized up Lu Yuan with curious expressions. Lu Yuan looked at Little Tiger who was rubbing his chest, and his expression slowly changed. He then smiled and said, Don't worry. If I beat you up till you can't get up, I won't pay the medical fees either. Little Tiger grinned. Beansprout, I underestimated you. But I don't think that you're a very strong gene fighter either, right? This power isn't stronger than me. As he said this, he dashed out toward Lu Yuan. Then let me show you the difference in techniques. Fist, leg, elbow, knee, every part of Little Tiger seemed to have turned into a weapon, attacking Lu Yuan like a tempest. Until one day ago, Lu Yuan hadn't gotten into fights that much. Hence, although he had practiced the military fist for a day, he had almost zero combat experience. Upon facing the tempest-like attacks, his pupils contracted abruptly and he could only keep on defending. Suddenly, he was in a sorry state and had to keep backing off. Thankfully, after he started cultivating, his power had increased a lot, seeming to be about the level of Little Tiger who often practiced fist techniques. Moreover, his mental power was probably stronger than Little Tiger because he could sharply detect the path of Little Tiger's attacks. Although he was in a sorry state and he'd still get punched occasionally, he was still able to forcibly hold off the attacks. Bang bang bang! The stifled sounds of fists and legs colliding rang out. The intense fight between the two of them caused the spectators to be immersed in it as well. After being in a stalemate for a while, Lu Yuan suddenly moved to the side and dodged Little Tiger's elbow attack. After that, he raised his kneecap and kicked the side of Little Tiger's stomach. As a result, Little Tiger's countenance turned pale and he backed off a few steps. All the spectators opened their eyes wide. To think that he is already able to retaliate? That's right. This kid's power and speed are both about the same as Little Tiger, but the difference in their technique and experience is very big. Earlier on, he had been suppressed by Little Tiger, but it didn't take him long before he started to retaliate. Is this what a Gene fighter is like? To think that they are so p*reverse. The spectators who had called Lu Yuan **SSY or Beansprout earlier on started to change the way they called him as the fight progressed. The capabilities that Lu Yuan had shown were enough to make many people look at him with admiration. Fu Langming had been paying attention to Lu Yuan. Hence, when Lu Yuan made his first retaliation, he opened his eyes wide and grinned, mumbling in his heart. What horrifying learning and adaptive abilities. He must be born with such combat instincts, right? In addition to that horrifying aptitude, what kind of monster has Madame Qinghe found? This kid can probably be compared with the descendants from the big clans in the empire. To think that such a monster can come from the slums? This must be a joke, right? He looked at Lu Yuan's dodging figure and his gaze flickered. This won't do. I must pull him to my side. I'll go talk to Madame about this later on. As the fight continued, Lu Yuan's retaliations became increasingly intense. From being suppressed and beaten up by Little Tiger who had rich experience and techniques, gradually Lu Yuan became increasingly masterful of the military fist. He started to dodge and retaliate. Now, every time Little Tiger hit Lu Yuan 4 times, Lu Yuan would be able to retaliate once. This was inevitably a tremendous progress. However, as the fight had gone on for a very long time, Lu Yuan and Little Tiger's stamina were bottoming out. The two of them kept on panting, and their movements weren't in proper forms anymore. The power of their attacks had become weak as well. At the sight of this, Fu Langming spoke up. All right. Stop. Hearing this, Little Tiger stopped immediately. However, Lu Yuan still swung out his fist, hitting Little Tiger in the face. Little Tiger covered his face, which was becoming red and swollen at a rate that could be seen by the N***ket eye. He then opened his eyes wide and looked at Lu Yuan. Weren't we told to stop? Lu Yuan rubbed the swollen patch on the corner of his lips, grinning in pain, but his gaze looked very innocent. I wasn't able to draw back my punch. Hearing this answer, Little Tiger glared with his big eyes and opened his mouth, wanting to say something but not knowing what to say. At this moment, Fu Langming crossed his arms in front of his chest and said, "Take a rest. We'll continue again later." Little Tiger's lips twitched and he asked, "Brother Ming, do I still have to spar with him?" "Why?" Right now, Little Tiger was looking at Lu Yuan and scratching his head speechlessly. "If we continue, I'm afraid that I'll be the one to get beaten up." There was no helping it. Lu Yuan's performance was too atrocious. It had only been a little while, but he was already able to retaliate. If he was given another afternoon, Little Tiger didn't have the confidence that he'd be able to win against Lu Yuan. In Little Tiger's heart, Lu Yuan was like a monster. Lu Yuan smiled. "It's fine. I won't pay for your medical fees." "How is that fine?" Little Tiger shouted, feeling dissatisfied. Fu Langming patted Little Tiger's shoulder and said, "Don't worry, I'll reimburse you for the medical fees." Little Tiger looked a little stunned at Fu Langming. He then tugged his lips and said in a crying tone, "Thank you." Thereafter, Lu Yuan and Little Tiger got some rest. During the break time, Lu Yuan circulated some spirit qi to clear his body's fatigue. At the same time, he thought back on the parts that he didn't do well during the earlier fight. He kept on learning from his lessons, wanting to improve. Fu Langming was right. Combat experience could really allow one to improve a lot in physical training technique. Lu Yuan's progress was a lot faster than when he was practicing by himself. He felt that it wouldn't take long before he could grasp the military fist completely. The military swordplay would be next then. Thereafter, he'd be able to enter the land of origins and search for a gene suitable for him. He'd be able to then engrave and record the gene as well as evolve it, moving on to the correct course. In the afternoon, Lu Yuan and Little Tiger started sparring again. This time around, there were even more spectators than before. Everyone looked at the two people in the arena and whispered amongst themselves. "Is this for real? To think that this Beansprout can put up a fight against Little Tiger? What Beansprout? Call him Brother Yuan. Brother Yuan is a gene fighter. His prospects will definitely be bright and limitless. Putting aside how the future will be, it's true that Brother Yuan is very amazing." In the morning, Little Tiger was still able to suppress Brother Yuan and beat him up with his rich experience. But how long has it only been? Brother Yuan has started to retaliate. Who amongst you will be able to compare with his learning abilities, as expected of a gene fighter? Brother Yuan is really amazing. If Brother Yuan wants to become a gangster in the future, I wonder if I can join him and have him as my boss. You haven't woken up, have you? As a gene fighter, won't Brother Yuan have to battle against demonic beasts in the future? Won't he have to battle it out against other races? Why would he play with people like us? Everyone found these words to be reasonable and all of them nodded. The battle started once again. However, it didn't begin like the first round where Little Tiger could still suppress Lu Yuan. During the fight, Little Tiger could sense clearly that Lu Yuan's flaws were getting increasingly fewer, and the pressure he was feeling was getting increasingly greater. It wasn't that long into the fight when Little Tiger's forehead was covered in sweat. In the morning, Lu Yuan was only able to retaliate about once after every 4 attacks. Gradually, he was able to retaliate once after every 3 attacks. Then 2 times. In the end, the spectators noticed that Lu Yuan was already able to fight on par with Little Tiger. He no longer was on defense with some retaliation. As time moved on, what everyone found unbelievable was that Lu Yuan started to suppress Little Tiger and beat him up. Bang! It wasn't long before Lu Yuan consecutively jabbed out, as well as attacking with his elbows and knees. He caused Little Tiger to back off consecutively. In the end, Lu Yuan managed to grab hold of the chance and punched Little Tiger in the stomach. Little Tiger's face turned pale, and he fell to the ground while holding onto his stomach, letting out a deep moan. The entire place sank into silence. Everyone turned quiet and exchanged glances. He won. Brother Yuan is amazing. To think that he managed to defeat Little Tiger in less than a day, as expected of my brother Yuan. He's too strong. Everyone cheered. Little Tiger, who was lying on the floor and hearing everyone's cheers, had his head filled with question marks. He took a look at the spectators, his gaze filled with puzzlement. He was a little stunned at his companion's betrayal. They had spent so much time together in the same dojo. Why did all these F*King B** stards betray him? Fu Langming crossed his arms in front of his chest and smiled as he looked at Lu Yuan. Kid, you didn't do too badly. Little Tiger who was lying on the floor? He suddenly felt like crying. He was a child nobody wanted. Lu Yuan smiled. Brother Ming, thank you for your praise. I still have a long way to go. I can only be considered to have passed when I can defeat you. Fu Langming nodded, expressing that what Lu Yuan said was right. Lu Yuan. He was only acting humble but didn't expect that Fu Langming had taken it for real. He actually thought that he was pretty amazing. After all, he was able to practice the military fist to this stage within a day. Next would be the military swordplay. Fu Langming seemed to have seen through Lu Yuan's thoughts and said, It's already late. We'll stop here for today. Come here tomorrow, I'll teach you the sword. Lu Yuan's eyes lit up and he said, smiling. Alright, thank you Brother Ming. Chapter 9, Paths of a Gene Fighter. Translator, Lord Bluefire. After Lu Yuan left, Fu Langming secretly returned to his office. He then took out his phone and dialed a number. Next to Lu Yuan's room, in a simple room with only a bed and a desk, Li Qinghe was seated cross-legged on the bed to cultivate. Suddenly, Li Qinghe frowned slightly. She flipped over her right hand and a small pitch-black cube landed on her hand. She tapped on the cube and a screen popped out, displaying Fu Langming's name. Li Qinghe picked up the phone and a cold voice rang out. You have 5 seconds to explain. Fu Langming, who was on the other end of the call, was breaking out in cold sweat. This is bad. I forgot that Madam hates people disturbing him when she's cultivating. He quickly said, Madam, it's about Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan? Li Qinghe raised her brows. What happened to him? What did I tell you? No, Madam, it's not that something had happened to Lu Yuan. His aptitude is very strong. Extremely strong. What do you mean? Fu Langming organized his thoughts before saying. Didn't you say that he was awakened 2 days ago? But he has started to refine his genetic chain with spirit energy. Didn't I say that I was going to teach him physical training techniques today? Turns out that his strength is about the same level as an expert under me. I'm guessing that he has probably gone through a certain degree of refinement. I asked him about this, and he said that he was able to absorb spirit chi in just half a day. Li Qinghe paused and a hint of a stunned gaze flashed past her eyes. He managed to absorb spirit chi in just half a day? Are you sure? I feel that he shouldn't have exaggerated things. After all, his strength is a lot stronger than normal people. Li Qinghe furrowed her brows slightly, fell silent, and then spoke up. I got it. So what do you want to say by calling me? Cough. Madam is really perceptive. I want to take him into my team. Scram. Li Qinghe replied coldly and hung up the call. Fu Langming, who was on the other end of the call, listened to the sound of the line being cut off. His face still looked stunned and he didn't react to the situation. In the room, Li Qinghe put away her communication device and lay down. Her wonderful figure was completely exposed. She squinted her eyes and looked at the ceiling, breaking into a hint of a smile. I didn't expect that little kid to turn out to have such aptitude. Half a day? That's almost catching up to me. This is a little interesting. Am I so lucky? A pitiful little kid that I encountered has such aptitude too. Her gaze flickered, and she seemed to be thinking of something. Lu Yuan then returned to the rental apartment and his room. It was very quiet. He took a look at Li Qinghe's closed room door. It's already this late. Elder sister Qinghe should have gone off to work. Lu Yuan thought of thanking Li Qinghe. After some thought, he planned on treating her to a good meal after he managed to get some money. Lu Yuan then shook his head and returned to his room. After taking a shower, the fatigue Lu Yuan was feeling gushed up. His body, which was gradually getting firmer, was covered in bruises left by little Tiger. He touched a bruise on his stomach and was in so much pain that he clenched his teeth. F***ck. He was really vicious. He bore with the fatigue and sat down cross-legged before circulating the spirit chi guiding technique. Just then, a strange voice rang out from another side. Lu Yuan's countenance changed and he almost spurted out. What time is it only now? That couple was already starting their exercise. How bad was their craving? Lu Yuan was speechless. He closed his eyes, wanting to continue with his cultivation. However, the voices became increasingly louder. He opened his eyes, feeling displeased. He then shouted, "It's time to pay rent." Instantly, the entire world became silent. Lu Yuan closed his eyes in satisfaction and then continued cultivating. 3 days later, in Daming Dojo, a group of strong men without any tops circled around Lu Yuan and a bald man. The two of them were wearing protective clothing and sparring with wooden swords. The wooden swords collided, creating stifled banging sounds. Both of them moved and not long later, Lu Yuan's wrist shook and his longsword slashed in an arc, landing on the spot where the strong man's sword handle was at. He then got up close and kneed the strong man, causing the latter to fall to the ground. Wow, Brother Yuan won again. Ironhead worked as a mercenary in the past and is skillful in sword techniques. I didn't expect him to be defeated by Brother Yuan in merely 2 days, as expected of my Brother Yuan. Amazing. Lu Yuan looked at Ironhead who was on the ground, and he let out an exhale. His hands that were holding onto the sword were still trembling slightly because he had used too much force. After defeating Little Tiger, Lu Yuan started to look for someone to have a sword sparring with. In the end, he started sparring with Ironhead, who had worked as a mercenary and had even hunted demonic beasts before. After spending 2 days, he finally grasped the military swordplay and defeated Ironhead. Ironhead wasn't a Gene fighter but was an ordinary person. This showed how strong this person's battle techniques were. Are you alright? Lu Yuan looked at Ironhead. Ironhead held onto his stomach and stood up. He then shook his head and grinned. I've seen quite a number of Gene fighters, but none of them progressed as fast as you did. I feel that you'll definitely become an important figure in the future. Lu Yuan grinned. I feel the same. What a joke. I have a cheat item and limitless potential in the future. Lu Yuan had this little bit of confidence. At this moment, Fu Langming, who was at the side, walked over. Not bad. You've made huge improvements. Given your current level, it shouldn't be a problem for you to enter the land of origins for the first time. Upon hearing that, Lu Yuan's eyes lit up and he broke into a smile. Brother Ming, thank you for your help these few days. Otherwise, I wouldn't have improved so much within such a short period. He also felt that given his current strength, he could try to enter the land of origins. The first entry was very crucial. Being 1 step slower would mean that one would always be 1 step behind. It was still better to reap some gains on the first trip. Fu Langming nodded then said, "Come with me." Lu Yuan followed Fu Langming to the office. Fu Langming then pointed to the sofa. Sit. As Lu Yuan sat down, Fu Langming looked at Lu Yuan and said, entering the land of origins means that you'll be obtaining your first extraordinary gene. This will determine the path that you'll take. Do you know the types of gene fighters? Lu Yuan nodded. I read it on the battle web. There's the guard type that focuses on defense and protection, the attack type that focuses on power and attacks, the assassination type that focuses on infiltration and assassination. Fu Langming nodded and then said slowly, since you've read about it before, you should know that once you've engraved and recorded the first extraordinary gene, your body's advantages will be inclined toward that gene. Although gene fighters can engrave and record genes of different types to raise their abilities in varying areas, studies show that if one focuses on one direction, the effect of engraving and recording the genes can be stacked. The benefits brought will then be the greatest. Have you decided which path to take? What Fu Langming said was the basic knowledge for gene fighters. However, this was only the absolute truth for ordinary gene fighters. Lu Yuan knew that this theory wasn't suitable for him. It was because he possessed the evolution cube. Each extraordinary gene would specially strengthen one area. For example, one's power would become stronger, one's defensive bones would become firm and have great endurance to attacks, and the body's agility and explosiveness would increase tremendously. Although the other areas would be strengthened as well, the effect wouldn't be as great as the strengthening for the areas in the original path. Thereafter, all gene fighters would basically choose to focus on engraving and recording genes on one particular route when they were doing so. This would bring them the greatest level of benefits. However, things were different for Lu Yuan. He could evolve all genes into their strongest form. With that, even if this extraordinary gene didn't bring about a big improvement in a certain area, it'd still be extremely terrifying after the effects from multiple genes were stacked and accumulated. After all, this was the most powerful gene. As a result, he could develop in all directions. The sturdiest defensive ability, the strongest power, the fastest speed, the strongest will. It was the same even for the control over elements. He'd have no flaws and would be incomparable. However, that was something left for the future. At the very least, in his current phase, he had to choose one direction. It'd be the direction he revealed to others. Previously, Lu Yuan had thought about this. He planned on being an attack-type fighter. To Lu Yuan, it didn't matter which direction he chose. With the evolution cube, he could be whatever he wanted to be. It was just that to the public, those who were attack-type would be able to handle more situations in the future. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Fu Langming paused for a moment and broke into a smile. Attack-type? Attack-type is good. I'm an attack-type too. Lu Yuan was speechless after taking a look at him. This guy had just attained a breakthrough to become a Tier 1 fighter and had only engraved and recorded one gene. What kind of attack type was he? Chapter 10, Sandstone City, Greystone Forest. Translator, Lord Bluefire. Thereafter, Lu Yuan continued to chat with Fu Langming about gene fighters. Time passed by very quickly, and it was soon night time. Lu Yuan then bade goodbye to Fu Langming and returned to his small room. Sitting on the bed, he turned to look out of the window. Under the quiet night sky, neon lights were flashing in the distance, bringing out Shili City's prosperity. After taking in a deep breath, he emptied his nervous emotions and then closed his eyes. It was time to start. His consciousness integrated into his gene battle tattoo. As a result, the golden prints on the gene battle tattoo flickered with a faint glow. In Lu Yuan's consciousness, the white fog was seething and it formed a door of light at the edge of the genetic chain. Although Lu Yuan hadn't entered it before, his instincts told him that this was the door leading to the land of origins. Lu Yuan pursed his lips and his consciousness got close to the door of light. At the next moment, his consciousness turned dark, and when he opened his eyes again, what he saw was a red scorching sun. His body instantly felt the hot temperature and dry air. After looking around, he saw that he was in a huge square and there were many yellow buildings surrounding it. The sky was the color of a dull yellow, covered in sand. A hint of astonishment flashed in Lu Yuan's eyes. This land of origins was really miraculous. To think that it could let him come to an unfamiliar place. It was said that all intelligent races in the entire universe could enter the land of origins. This meant that the land of origins connected the entire universe. No one knew where in the universe the land of origins was and why it could connect all intelligent races together. All of a sudden, noisy sounds brought Lu Yuan back to his senses. Looking for a guard-type fighter to go to the yellow sand bug's nest. Only want elves. Team led by an elemental-type fighter with elite-grade gene to kill sand scorpions at the stone walls. All races are accepted, except kobolds. Human race newbie wants to join a human race party. Is there any big shot who is willing to help carry a newbie? When Lu Yuan listened to the sounds that seemed like they belonged in a marketplace, his expression was a little strange. There were many life forms gathered in the square, shouting out to form parties. Lu Yuan noticed that other than the human race, there were other races here as well. The elves that often appeared in Earth's fantasy stories had tall and slender figures, pointy ears, and beautiful faces. There were also kobolds who had dog heads. When Lu Yuan saw a beautiful-looking cat girl with a pair of cat ears and a tail that was wagging endlessly, his eyes opened wide. A cat has really come to repay a favor. Which L**share would be able to hold his ground against these cat ears and tail? Lu Yuan felt elated inside. This world was really wonderful. In this square, there were only 4 races: humans, elves, kobolds, and cat folks. This was an initial city for these 4 races. As for where the city was, Lu Yuan had some sort of an idea. The scorching high temperature, the sand on the square, the murky air. This clearly looked like the stone walls area in the desert. Amongst the 4 initial cities for the Great Revelation planet's humans, only the Sandstone City was in the desert stone walls area. At the thought of the Sandstone City, Lu Yuan recalled the information he had read previously. The Sandstone City was situated in the desert region, surrounded by sand and stone walls. Most of the monsters in this area were rock-type, poison-type, and wind-type. As Lu Yuan was recalling the surrounding environment and monsters, someone suddenly patted him on the shoulder. Lu Yuan frowned slightly and turned to look over. A handsome-looking elf wearing yellow leather armor stood there, beaming. "Human friend, are you alone?" Lu Yuan raised his brows and said, "Is anything the matter?" "Ha ha ha, we're planning to hunt some greystone beetles. Do you want to join us? We'll distribute the gains based on contribution." As the male elf said this, he pointed to 3 others behind him who weren't far away. There was a tall and skinny elf, a kobold, and a human. Lu Yuan took a look and then shook his head. "No need, thanks." Lu Yuan turned and planned to leave, but the male elf stopped him. "Hey friend, don't leave. It's very dangerous to adventure outside by yourself. Why don't we go together?" Lu Yuan looked at him and answered confidently. "Who said that I'm alone? My friend is already waiting for me outside." After hearing this, the male elf's smile stiffened up. "Oh, so you already have a partner? All right then. I won't be disturbing you anymore." He made way and Lu Yuan walked by him. After that, the male elf's lips twitched and he said, "So unlucky." The trio who weren't far off walked over. The kobold smiled and asked, "Leader, how is it? That guy has a friend outside." Hearing this, all 3 of them wore disappointed expressions. "That's such a pity. Based on his reaction, he should be a complete newbie. I didn't expect him to have someone to guide him. Let's change our target." The male elf let out a sigh. "It's getting increasingly harder to deceive the newbies these days. Should we make some changes? It's too hard to do that. Why not find a time to call for a meeting and improve our deceit skills? That works too. If this really doesn't work, we'll just go out and kill greystone beetles." After Lu Yuan left the square, he assessed the surroundings. Sandstone City's streets were covered with sand, and there were buildings built from yellow rocks on both sides of the streets. Many rock giants were walking along the streets. Lu Yuan had read about this in a post previously. Every initial city came with constructs from the land of origins that could maintain the city's minimal level of operation. These rock giants were the constructs that came with the Sandstone City, and they maintained public security. Fighting in the city wasn't allowed. Sandstone City was very big. Due to time restraints, Lu Yuan jogged out and it took him 2 hours before he saw the city walls. The walls were also built from yellow rocks and were about 30 meters tall. There were huge cannons on the city walls, as well as many constructs patrolling. At this moment, Lu Yuan arrived at the city gate that was guarded by 2 constructs. However, there wasn't anyone performing checks, so all the Gene fighters could leave or enter the Sandstone City directly. Lu Yuan then walked out of the city gate and what came into sight was a stretch of barren stone walls. Strong gales were blowing and sand was blown everywhere. Lu Yuan covered his nose, feeling a little uncomfortable. Each of the 4 initial cities for humans had its own horrible conditions. For example, the Storm City was surrounded by storms and if one wasn't careful, they might get blown into the sky. As for the Sandstone City, the degree of air pollution was too serious. One would take in a lot of sand with each inhale. It was a little hard to get used to. After discerning the directions, Lu Yuan then moved toward the right of the Sandstone City. The place he was heading to was an area called the Greystone Forest. The primary ferocious beasts in that area were greystone beetles, which were very weak ferocious beasts even amongst those at the probational tier. The drop rate for genetic armaments and extraordinary genes from them was close to 0, but their stone armor was a material to forge genetic armaments and could be sold for money. To Lu Yuan, it was a safe and steady option. However, as he hadn't contracted a mount in the land of origins, he could only rely on his legs to travel there. 2 hours later. After entering the land of origins for 4 hours, a stone walls area that was covered with gray stone pillars finally appeared before Lu Yuan. This was the Greystone Forest. He couldn't see the ends of this stone walls area. In one of the posts that he had read, it stated that a Gene fighter had especially gone to measure the size of this area. The Greystone Forest had a radius of close to 100 kilometers. It was absurd. After taking in a deep breath, Lu Yuan took out 1 bottle of water to have a big drink and then ate some energy bars. He had run all the way here and felt like he was going to be dried up by the sun. After replenishing his stamina, Lu Yuan then stopped to rest for a bit before entering the Greystone Forest. Not long after entering the Greystone Forest, Lu Yuan heard the sound of fighting in front. He saw 2 cat folks, one holding a long sword and the other holding bow and arrows, attacking a greystone beetle that was the size of a small dog. There were 5 to 6 other greystone beetles' corpses on the ground. The catfolk with the bow and arrows had great archery skills and when they shot, the arrows were like a stream of light, entering the greystone beetle's eye. It was an instant kill. Lu Yuan's pupils couldn't help but contract. There weren't many precious resources in this area, so experts definitely wouldn't come here. Because of that, those who came here were mostly Gene fighters who hadn't awakened for long and didn't have the capabilities to explore other areas. Despite this, there was still a difference in their strength. Lu Yuan felt that he might not be able to win against that archer even if they were to go one-on-one. As expected, he was still a newbie and had to continue to work hard. Lu Yuan cheered himself on and then quietly left. This wasn't the city and fighting wasn't prohibited. Even those from the same race might fight each other, let alone those from different races. It'd be a huge loss if he were to die. For security purposes, Lu Yuan moved in a direction where there weren't any sounds of fighting. After another 20 or more minutes, his surroundings became very quiet. Just then, Lu Yuan saw a gray stone beetle under a stone pillar in front of him. Its huge mouth was chewing on rocks. It was crunching away, looking like it was enjoying its food. Lu Yuan looked at the surroundings and his eyes lit up. He didn't expect to encounter a gray stone beetle that was alone by itself. This was great. Attack it.